Most people think choosing between two watch brands should be easy, because from the outside, watches seem simple. They tell the time, they sit on your wrist, and as long as they look good and function properly, most people assume the differences cannot possibly be that important. But the moment someone enters the world of Japanese watches seriously, something strange starts happening. Because after spending enough time watching reviews, reading forums, and comparing collections online, two names begin appearing over and over again in conversations about value, reliability, and long-term ownership: Orient and Citizen. And what makes this comparison fascinating is not simply that both brands make good watches, but that they represent two completely different philosophies about what a watch should actually be in the modern world. Because while one brand became obsessed with traditional mechanical watchmaking and the emotional experience that comes with it, the other focused on technology, convenience, innovation, and practical everyday reliability in a way that completely changed how millions of people use watches. And honestly, this is why so many people struggle to choose between them, because this is not simply a battle between specifications or design choices anymore. It becomes a battle between emotion and practicality, between tradition and innovation, between mechanical charm and modern convenience. And once you understand that difference, you begin realizing why some people absolutely fall in love with Orient watches while others can never stop recommending Citizen. To truly understand why these brands feel so different on the wrist, you first need to understand where they came from, because their history shaped almost every decision they make even today. Citizen was founded in 1918 in Japan with a mission that was surprisingly modern for its time. Because instead of creating watches only for wealthy collectors or luxury buyers, the company wanted to produce reliable, accessible timepieces for ordinary people who simply needed something dependable for daily life. And over the decades, Citizen evolved into one of the most technologically advanced watchmakers in the world, constantly experimenting with new materials, new energy systems, and new ways of making watches more practical for real-world use. This is the company that helped revolutionize solar-powered watches through Eco-Drive technology, which allowed watches to absorb light from almost any source and convert it into energy, removing the need for battery replacements for years at a time. And honestly, once someone experiences that level of convenience in daily life, it becomes very difficult to go backward. Because suddenly, the watch stops feeling like something that needs maintenance and starts feeling like a tool that simply works no matter what. But Orient followed a completely different path. Founded in 1950, Orient became deeply connected to traditional mechanical watchmaking at a time when many companies were moving aggressively toward quartz technology. And instead of abandoning automatic movements during the quartz crisis, Orient continued focusing on affordable mechanical watches that could deliver the emotional experience of traditional horology without luxury-level pricing. And that decision eventually gave Orient something many affordable brands struggle to achieve: identity. Because when people buy an Orient watch today, they are not usually buying it because it is the most technologically advanced watch available. They are buying it because it feels alive. Because there is something emotional about wearing a mechanical watch powered entirely by motion and tiny moving components instead of electronics and batteries. Now, this is where the comparison becomes extremely interesting, because the movement inside a watch completely changes the ownership experience, and the difference between Citizen and Orient becomes obvious the moment you start living with these watches daily. Citizen dominates the world of quartz and solar technology in a way very few brands can match, because Eco-Drive is honestly one of the most practical systems ever created for everyday watches. The watch charges itself using light, remains highly accurate for months, sometimes years, and requires almost no effort from the owner whatsoever. And in modern life, where convenience dominates almost everything, that practicality becomes incredibly powerful. You pick up the watch, wear it, and it simply works. No winding, no resetting time after leaving it untouched for a few days, no concerns about power reserve. And on top of that, Citizen watches are often far more accurate than mechanical watches, losing only a few seconds per month while automatic watches may drift several seconds every single day. For many people, especially those who simply want reliability without complications, that accuracy becomes impossible to ignore. But then, Orient enters the conversation with something that numbers and specifications alone cannot fully explain: mechanical emotion. Because wearing an automatic Orient watch feels fundamentally different from wearing a quartz watch, especially when you notice the smooth, sweeping seconds hand moving continuously across the dial instead of ticking once every second. And while some people may not care about that detail initially, collectors understand exactly why it matters. Because it creates life. The watch feels mechanical, physical, human. Models like the Orient Bambino became incredibly popular because they capture that old-school mechanical charm so well despite their affordable price. Watches like the Orient Kamasu surprised enthusiasts by offering features like sapphire crystal, solid water resistance, and reliable in-house automatic movements. At prices where many brands still sell basic mineral glass fashion watches. And honestly, this is where Orient becomes dangerous for competitors. Because once people realize how much mechanical experience they can get for relatively little money, they begin questioning why traditional Swiss watches cost dramatically more. But Citizen quietly fights back in areas many collectors underestimate at first: practicality, comfort, durability. Because while Orient often wins emotionally, Citizen tends to win in daily usability, especially for people who live active lifestyles and simply need a watch that integrates effortlessly into modern routines. Citizen's titanium models, for example, are shockingly comfortable because they are so lightweight that they almost disappear on the wrist, while many of the company's dive watches through the ProMaster line are built with serious real-world functionality in mind, including strong water resistance, excellent lume, and highly durable cases designed to survive years of hard use. And this reveals something important about how these companies think. Citizen designs watches to support modern life as efficiently as possible. Orient designs watches to make people fall in love with traditional watchmaking. Neither philosophy is wrong. They simply target different emotions. And then there is design, which may actually be the most personal part of this entire comparison, because the visual identity of these brands reflects their philosophy perfectly. Citizen watches often feel cleaner, sharper, and more modern, especially with their Eco-Drive and radio-controlled collections, where practicality and technology influence the aesthetic heavily. Orient, however, leans more toward warmth, vintage inspiration, and classic proportions, especially in dress watches like the Bambino, which became famous because it delivers the feeling of an elegant vintage watch at a price almost anyone can access. The domed crystal, the balanced dial, the polished hands, the subtle details, all of it creates an emotional atmosphere that feels much more expensive than the actual price tag. And honestly, this is where many buyers realize something important about themselves. Some people wear watches because they appreciate convenience. Others wear watches because they enjoy the feeling watches create. And those are two completely different experiences. So when people ask which brand is better between Orient and Citizen, the real answer becomes surprisingly simple. If you want modern practicality, near-perfect convenience, excellent accuracy, lightweight comfort, and technology designed to make life easier every single day, then Citizen is probably the smarter choice for most people. But if you want warmth, personality, mechanical charm, and a deeper emotional connection to traditional watchmaking, then Orient becomes incredibly difficult to beat at this price point.